Really?
Yes, that's good. Yeah. It's because I'm the best guitar player in the world. Yeah. Self-taught, no lessons. Thank you very much.
We're flying at 26,000 feet, moving up to 30,000 feet, and we've got clear skies all the way to Las Vegas. And right now we're bringing you some in-flight entertainment.
Infrared cameras are instruments which can detect infrared energy through a lens, and the camera then interprets that energy and converts it into an electronic signal. That electronic signal is then processed to create a thermal image. Infrared cameras have lenses just like regular cameras, but the lens focuses that infrared light onto an infrared sensor array. Thousands of sensors on the array convert the energy, and the energy is converted into an image. Well, the important thing to remember is that this is a very, very useful technology that we are using. It's heat loss detection, electrical component malfunction.
If we were trying to take an inferential guess here about timelines.
He's well connected at the highest levels of government. He says we got about 2 years.
years.
Yeah.
What else does he know that you're willing to share?
Get out of the cities, get to an area 600 feet or higher above sea level, and make sure you've got a safe haven 600 feet or more above sea level at a good distance from a major city. That's my advice. Do what you can.
After we survive in our concrete structures, then like all the tops will pop off of the missile silos and all these globalists will flood out. That's their plan, right? They're going to flood back onto the surface and take over after everybody's dead. If we make it through all that and we're still here, they're going to have a fight on their hands.
The violent earth changes will kick in at some point, and the powers that be, for want of a better term, are speeding up what they're doing because they want to get their shiny new world order in place before the violent earth changes shut down everything, including them. And what they don't want is hundreds of millions or billions of people roaming around the planet that they don't control. They want those people dead. I don't know how quickly the violent earth changes are going to be coming in. The government knows because they've been tracking the 10th planet since 1979. That's well known within certain segments of the government. It's highly classified. Many retired Navy people, especially if they revealed to me the classified briefings that they attended in the U.S. Navy, Submarine Corps, where they were told that during their lifetimes there would be violent earth changes, including worldwide flooding, an inland sea in the United States where the Mississippi River Valley is now, 200-mile-an-hour winds for probably a day, and possibly a kill shot from the sun.
Safe release him.
Law said death was a release, not a punishment.
Coronal mass ejection. Know the time frame. Here's what the veterans were told in the Navy. They were told, gentlemen, in your lifetimes. That's all they were told.
Can you review, just for those who haven't seen our previous interview, and just kind of summarize the 10th planet, the flyby, the gravitational changes? We're not talking about a collision with Earth. We're talking about gravitational changes. Just give us an overview, please.
That's the 10th planet is what they found. The reason it's difficult to see is because it's got a cloaking covering of dust that's, except in a limited time frame, I think in June, they can see it with normal telescopes, but the rest of the time, the only telescopes that can see it, they have to look in the infrared light spectrum. Regardless, 1979 is when they began in earnest preparing for this thing, because their mathematical calculations told them the size, the speed, the direction of the 10th planet. And it gave them a time frame to begin preparing, which they've been doing now since 1979. Some of it very public, with cover stories. Now here's what the Navy veterans were told in the classified briefings. That everything east of the Blue Ridge Parkway, which typically is 80 to 100 miles from the Atlantic Ocean, will be underwater. That everything 600 feet, and 300 feet and lower will be underwater. I recommend people get at least 600 feet above sea level. These Navy veterans in these briefings were shown a map. We call it the Navy map. Now, there's about 20 versions of this. Many of them done by psychics and so forth. I worked with 3 different veterans to recreate the Navy map. Now, these guys are working from memory going back to about 1985, by the way, to recreate the map as best they could. It's not meant to be accurate down to the last foot or even the last mile. It's meant to give a general representation of what will be underwater and what will be above water.
That's self-way harm going there now, okay? What you want for living?
Not for sale.
Not for sale. There's no such thing as no for sale. Not for sale. Not for sale. No, are they a pair, or would you consider selling separate? No. I don't know already. I don't have. I don't have. I'm spending for trading. Understand? Wait. I do have something that'll make a change in my life. Something you can't pass on. I took it off from the Toller refugee camp. It's the life savings of the entire clan. Paper. Have you ever seen people? Mellow. I was saving for special trade.
Don't you do it.
Maybe I'm talking to the wrong person here. I mean, whose boat is this? I mean, is it your boat or is it your boat?
No, it's his boat. But he doesn't own us.
Half an hour. Let's see if just writing something. 2 pages in here, man. I mean, I get half a dozen girls with this, you know. Half an hour. 45 minutes with me, one. I like to do the talking, if you know what I mean.
Not an exact foot-by-foot, mile-by-mile representation.
Right, we're going to show the map as you're talking.
If you overlay a map of where all the FEMA camps are on top of the Navy map, you'll find maybe 2 FEMA camps that would be underwater out of all the different 25 or 30 or 35, whatever it is, FEMA camps. I thought that was kind of an interesting side note. That the weight of the water of this inland sea will trigger 3 9-point plus earthquakes on a new measured seismic zone, causing great damage north and south and east. Now, in the winter of 1811, 1812, there were hundreds of earthquakes on a new measured seismic zone. 3 of them rang church bells on the East Coast in Philadelphia. Now, that's a lot of power to travel about 1,000 miles to ring church bells. In 1811, 1812, almost nobody lived more than 80 or 100 miles east or west of the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, there were settlements, there were small cities, but for the most part, not that many back then. And of course, now everything east of Mississippi is heavily populated with really large cities, east, south, northwest, east of the Mississippi River. Here's what the Navy veterans were told in the classified briefings: that everything east of the Blue Ridge Parkway, which typically is 80 to 100 miles from the Atlantic Ocean, will be underwater. That everything 600 feet, and well, 300 feet and lower will be underwater. I recommend people get at least 600 feet above sea level. These Navy veterans in these briefings were shown a map. We call it the Navy map. Now, there's about 20 versions of this. Many of them done by psychics and so forth. I worked with 3 different veterans to recreate the Navy map. Now, these guys are working from memory going back to about 1985, by the way, to recreate the map as best they could. It's not meant to be accurate down to the last foot or even the last mile. It's meant to give a general representation of what will be underwater and what will be above water, not an exact foot-by-foot, mile-by-mile representation.
Right, we're going to show the map as you're talking.
If you overlay a map of where all the FEMA camps are on top of the Navy map, you'll find maybe 2 FEMA camps that would be underwater out of all the different 25 or 30 or 35, whatever it is, FEMA camps. I thought that was kind of an interesting side note. That the weight of the water of this inland sea will trigger 3 9-point plus earthquakes on a new measured seismic zone, causing great damage north and south and east. Now, in the winter of 1811, 1812, there were hundreds of earthquakes on a new measured seismic zone. 3 of them rang church bells on the East Coast in Philadelphia. Now, that's a lot of power to travel about 1,000 miles and ring church bells. In 1811, 1812, almost nobody lived more than 80 or 100 miles east or west of the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, there were settlements, there were small cities, but for the most part, not that many back then. And of course, now everything east of Mississippi is heavily populated with really large cities, east, south, northwest, east of the Mississippi River. Right, but very few structures will survive that. A steel reinforced concrete structure that's round has a much greater chance. Of course, with winds of that velocity, you're going to have things thrown around like school buses. A school bus hitting your structure is going to ruin your whole day. The force of Planet X is gravitational and electromagnetic. It'll be exerting both on our planet. And it's done this multiple times in the past. About every 3,600 years, 5 or 6 civilizations are wiped out and 5 or 6 civilizations begin all over again. Civilization knowledge is preserved and it starts over. And so it takes a while to start all over while most people are either dead or are pulling themselves out of the mud and starting all over, barefoot peasants with having lost all the technology that was lost.
Everything that we're seeing is part of their preparation for that.
Building these massive underground cities in the Ural Mountains. Well, now we know, don't we?
The globalists know something big is coming. 10th planet, part of it. They know there's a major Earth shift happening.
Once the Earth changes become obvious, they won't be able to control these people. The federal government needs UPS and FedEx work just like it deliveries of spare parts and necessary items. They want that to continue to the very end because there's always a need for more spare parts. I don't care if you're the federal government or who you are, there's always something lacking that needs to be delivered. So they want to keep things normal until the very last moment on one hand. On the other, once the Earth changes really kick in, people are going to go bonkers crazy. And if there's 50 million people going bonkers crazy instead of 350 million people going bonkers crazy, that makes it easier for them to control the people who are left topside.
I mean, the globalists aren't going to warn people in advance, obviously.
No, they're not.
When are people going to know? It's here.
What the Navy told the veterans, it'll take about 30 days before it to become obvious that the worldwide flooding is kicking in.